The only thing that matters is what they feel and how much they feel for each other.
Hollywood's golden age loved perfect images, glamorous couples, and stories that kept fans dreaming. But behind the spotlight were marriages that caught everyone off guard, pairings that didn't match the glittering expectations of the time. Some stars chose partners who didn't fit the studio mold, leaving insiders stunned and publicists working overtime to keep certain faces out of the frame. These unions reveal hidden sides of fame that rarely reach the public. And just when one story seems unbelievable, the next one goes even further. What drove these unexpected matches remains a mystery worth exploring. Number 7, James Mason and Pamela Mason. James Mason's marriage to Pamela Mason remains one of Hollywood's most striking examples of a partnership built on intellect, wit, and audacity, rather than conventional glamour. Mason, with his smoldering presence and aristocratic voice, quickly became one of cinema's most magnetic leading men. Audiences and executives alike expected him to pair with a traditionally polished Hollywood beauty, yet he instead chose Pamela, a woman whose sharp features and severe style set her far apart from the soft-focus ideals of the era. Her unconventional looks drew snide commentary from observers who couldn't reconcile Mason's heartthrob status with a spouse who rejected Hollywood's aesthetic expectations. Pamela possessed a force of personality that could silence studios. A writer, political thinker, and relentless conversationalist, she had little patience for the decorative role typically assigned to actors' wives. Instead of striving to appear glamorous, she leaned into her distinctive appearance and cultivated a reputation for cutting intelligence. At industry gatherings, she became known for delivering brilliantly brutal critiques of films, filmmakers, and Hollywood culture. Executives who initially questioned Mason's choice soon discovered that Pamela was far more intimidating than any starlet. Her verbal precision could dismantle egos faster than any columnist. In an industry that valued beauty above all else, she wielded intellect like a weapon, an attribute Mason openly admired. Their matrimony altered the traditional Hollywood power relations. Leading gentlemen were always supposed to attract the most attention, but James, however, took the role of Pamela. And he even did so with elegance by taking, for example, drinks and listening with great care while she was acting with biting humor. Their home was a melting pot for artists, writers, and thinkers, instead of a place for people with good looks and climbing social status. Moreover, Pamela was busy with her creative work, writing, and developing her own career, different from her husband's fame. Their union was like a rare one of equals, not dictated by the studio's demands, but by the recognition of each other's intelligence. Even her most vocal critics, who mainly focused on beauty, acknowledged that the couple's presence in the industry was mostly due to Pamela's intellect. Nevertheless, this powerful coupling was not always smooth sailing. The very passion that characterized their relationship also played a part in its disintegration, which ultimately led to a legal battle that presented Pamela's unassailable mastery of words. It was reported that her fiery presence in court would make even the most experienced lawyers go speechless, thus further solidifying her reputation. The Masons, despite the dramatic ending of the marriage, left a legacy characterized by a great deal of intelligence, a drive for creativity, and the refusal to accept Hollywood's superficial standards of beauty. Their tale goes on to serve as a testament that a true partnership can rely on qualities much more permanent than looks. Hold on to your curiosity, because the next pairing takes things even further. Number 6. Charles Laughton and Elsa Lanchester. Charles Laughton and Elsa Lanchester formed one of Hollywood's most intriguing unions, an eccentric, durable partnership built on professional symbiosis rather than traditional romantic expectations. Laughton, whose distinctive features made him the industry's preferred choice for characters of grotesque depth, was never bound by the glamour standards imposed on leading men. Lanchester, equally unconventional in appearance and persona, became unforgettable through singular roles, such as her electrifying turn in The Bride of Frankenstein. Together, they embodied a pairing that defied Hollywood norms, prompting both fascination and bewilderment among peers who struggled to categorize their unique dynamic. Instead of attempting to reshape them into a polished husband and wife brand, studio publicists embraced their peculiarity. Realizing that neither could be molded into conventional beauty symbols, the industry reframed them as eccentric artists whose unconventional looks were extensions of their creativity. This unusual approach worked in their favor. Rather than being hidden or glamorized, the couple became celebrated for their individuality, leaning into theatricality and intellect instead of surface appeal. Their public image emphasized charm, wit, and professional brilliance, transforming what Hollywood might have perceived as liabilities into defining assets. However, behind the eccentricity of this crafted personality, there was a private arrangement, which in a restrictive age offered both protection and practicality. Laughton, who was a homosexual, and it was no secret that his sexuality would ruin his career, found in Lanchester a partner who was well aware of the stakes involved. She gave him friendship, secrecy, and a sound mind, while he gave her professional collaboration and loyalty. Their marriage was less like a conventional romance and more like a carefully balanced alliance, endowing each with the freedom to go through the theater without the need to adopt the industry's rigid gender, sexual, and marital performance codes. The history of their partnership is longer than 3 decades, and the two were able to adjust to changing studio situations and tastes. Although other Hollywood couples broke up because of the pressure to maintain the idealized images, Laughton and Lanchester survived by completely staying out of those illusions. Their love was a beacon of truth in a world that was, otherwise, so artificial. It showed that a marriage based on respect, mutual oddity, and professional ground could indeed outlast the most glamorous love stories. Even after Laughton's death, Lanchester kept their memories alive with her candid reflections, thus cementing their partnership as one of the most unconventional and yet remarkably successful ones in Hollywood. Number 5. Humphrey Bogart and Mayo Method. Humphrey Bogart's marriage to Mayo Method remains one of Hollywood's most volatile and baffling unions, a relationship that stunned an industry built on polished illusions. Before his celebrated partnership with Lauren Bacall, Bogart spent years entangled with Method, an actress whose temper and insecurities frequently erupted into spectacular confrontations. Their private battles became notorious across studio lots, earning them the darkly comic nickname, the Battling Bogarts. Method's suspicion, intensity, and quick-trigger fury clashed violently with Bogart's weary resilience, creating a home life that contrasted sharply with his controlled on-screen persona. Method's reputation for explosive behavior was matched by the physical danger she sometimes posed. Accounts from colleagues described incidents in which arguments escalated into flying objects, shattered mirrors, or worse. One infamous clash reportedly ended with Bogart being treated in an emergency room after sustaining a knife wound he publicly shrugged off as a shaving mishap. Method's jealousy also fueled confrontations on studio grounds, where accusations and outbursts became part of the couple's turbulent mythology. Despite his cinematic toughness, Bogart often retreated from these episodes, revealing a vulnerability that contrasted sharply with his hardened screen image. The publicity machine of Hollywood had a hard time managing the situation through Bogart's rising star power, together with his interconnections, which negatively affected the image that the studios were trying to project. Publicists often tried to keep Method away from the limelight by controlling the angles used when taking photographs, reducing her presence at the events held for the promotion of the film, or altogether omitting her when it was possible. Her looks and character were seen as disadvantages in an industry that was obsessed with glamour and sellability. The couple's conflict, which kept getting hotter, became very hard to hide, and this forced the studios to come up with complicated strategies to keep Bogart's persona, which was already bankable, alive. Their marriage was a pointer to how far the system could go in covering up a star's private life when it was perceived to be a threat to the commercial mythology that had been created around that star. The shift in the industry was that when Bogart eventually divorced Method and paired up with the young and vibrant Lauren Bacall, the latter was the hardest of the two, receiving nothing but relief. The new partnership was perfectly in line with the expectations of Hollywood. It was like the restoration of a certain order that the upheaval caused by Method had long taken away. But the previous marriage still counts, not only because of its chaos, but also because it so clearly exposed the conflict between what the stars' lives were really like and the public image that was sold to the world. Bogart and Method's tale unveiled the ultimate limit of the studio's power, illustrating that even the most expertly engineered personas could break down when faced with the human emotions that were behind them, in all their unpredictability. Their story is forever remembered as a warning of the pitfalls of fame. Number 4. Ernest Borgnine and Donna Rancourt. Ernest Borgnine's marriage to Donna Rancourt stands out as one of Hollywood's most unexpected yet ultimately meaningful partnerships. Borgnine, whose rugged, unusual looks became his trademark on screen, had already experienced several turbulent marriages, including a famously brief 32-day union with Broadway legend Ethel Merman, before meeting Rancourt. While his earlier relationships often paired him with women who fit the glamour-driven ideals of the industry, they collapsed quickly and publicly. Rancourt, by contrast, possessed none of the conventional star-adjacent radiance Hollywood expected. Her modest style, unassuming demeanor, and everyday practicality contrasted sharply with the image studios preferred for their leading men's partners, leaving insiders puzzled by Borgnine's choice. Rancourt's appearance became a cruel point of fascination among industry gossip writers who couldn't resist comparing her unfavorably to Borgnine's former wives. In a town where presentation was currency, she lacked the stylist's polish and fashion guidance typically granted to spouses of major stars. Yet Borgnine seemed unconcerned with Hollywood's narrow beauty expectations. Their pairing sparked disbelief, not because Borgnine himself met classic standards — his famously unconventional face was part of his charm — but because public perception assumed stars should always marry up visually. In many ways, the contrast between his previous, short-lived marriages and this new unglamorous match highlighted just how deeply he had grown disillusioned with image-first relationships. What developed between Borgnine and Rancourt was a rare case in Hollywood. Stability. The couple established a long-lasting partnership that could even be compared with all of Borgnine's previous marriages combined, as the latter durably lasted more than 4 decades. With the passing of years, the two were seen in the photos living a down-to-earth domestic life, which was unaffected by the burden of trying to keep up with the illusions of the red carpet. The film industry, which was so accustomed to creating different images, didn't even try to reinvent Rancourt's appearance or to groom her for the role of a Hollywood wife. It seemed as if the studios had concluded that Borgnine's own peculiar look made such attempts needless, or perhaps even futile. Their genuineness turned into a subtle proclamation, thus refuting the glamorous obsession of Hollywood. The feature that notably made their marriage remarkable was the way it so spontaneously and naturally contradicted the stereotypes attached to public couples. The calmness, loyalty, and real companionship that Rancourt gave Borgnine, who had for a long time been used to turbulent unions with glamorous women, were the three main characteristics of their marriage. It was a case of emotional compatibility, winning over the shallow ideals in a beauty-over-durability industry. Their 40-year bond is a rare Hollywood example of marriage that, instead of resembling the theory of matching appearances, was based on the qualities of shared resilience, comfort, and mutual devotion. If that marriage seemed unconventional, the next one raises the stakes. Number 3, Peter Lorre and Celia Lovsky. Peter Lorre's marriage to Celia Lovsky stands as one of Hollywood's most unconventional yet artistically significant partnerships. Lorre, with his haunting eyes, expressive face, and soft, unsettling voice, built a career portraying characters steeped in menace or tragic oddity. Lovsky, older and strikingly severe in appearance, had once been his drama teacher in Vienna and recognized his extraordinary potential long before Hollywood discovered him. Their union mystified many industry observers who focused on the visual mismatch while overlooking the deep creative connection that bound them. In truth, Lovsky played a pivotal role in shaping the very persona that made Lorre internationally famous. Lovsky's greatest influence on Lorre emerged not in front of cameras, but behind them. As an experienced stage performer with formidable discipline, she nurtured his talent from its earliest stages and guided him through the cultural transitions from Europe to Hollywood. In an industry obsessed with glamour and surface polish, she and Lorre stood apart, both unconventional, both defiantly themselves. Her sharp features and austere presence drew cruel commentary from gossip writers accustomed to glamorous star spouses. Yet none of that diminished the authority she held over Lorre's artistic development. She helped him refine his acting technique, negotiate professional opportunities, and avoid roles that risked reducing him to caricature. At the time of Lorre's addiction, which definitely kept on threatening his career, his marriage transformed into something delicate, yet complicated. Lovsky was there for him when Hollywood was not at all forgiving to the distressed actors. He was the one who controlled his money, talked to the studios when his reliability fluctuated, and intervened when he was abusing substances to the point where his health was endangered. The people working behind the scenes in the industry seemed to agree that Lorre might have been finished without her influence. But, of course, the artist wouldn't have been prolific ever then anyway. Lorre's marriage, although eventually broken, still had the bonds of love and friendship that kept Lorre and Lovsky in communication even after the romantic relationship had ended. She was his mentor still, at times played little roles in his films, and was a part of his artistic life till the end of his days. Their working together in the field threw up yet another version of the Hollywood marriage, one that was based on mentorship, respect, and creativity, rather than on opulence or the public image. Number 2, Spencer Tracy and Louise Treadwell. Spencer Tracy's marriage to Louise Treadwell remains one of Hollywood's most complex and overlooked unions, long overshadowed by his celebrated relationship with Katherine Hepburn. Tracy married Treadwell in 1923, early in his struggling stage career, when he relied heavily on her for stability and support. Modest, serious, and far from the glamorous image later attached to Tracy, Treadwell anchored his early life as he navigated an uncertain path toward stardom. But once studios began shaping Tracy into a rugged leading man, she no longer fit the narrative they wanted to promote. Hollywood's publicity machine quickly moved to minimize her presence. Treadwell, partially deaf and uncomfortable in the studio social world, found it easy to be excluded. Publicists used her condition as a justification to keep her out of events, photos, and press. As Tracy's fame grew, the spotlight shifted entirely to his chemistry with Hepburn, leaving Treadwell nearly erased from the public story of his life. Many fans never realized that Tracy remained legally and financially tied to a wife the studio system had quietly pushed aside. Yet Treadwell's life developed a profound purpose. The couple's deaf son inspired her to become an advocate for children with hearing impairments. While Tracy reportedly struggled with guilt and emotional distance, Treadwell poured her energy into developing new teaching methods and eventually established schools that became national models. Tracy funded her work, even while living separately and maintaining his long-term relationship with Hepburn. Their marriage evolved into a financial and moral framework rather than a romantic partnership, one that allowed Treadwell to build a legacy independent of Hollywood's influence. When Tracy died in 1967, many attendees at his funeral were stunned to discover Treadwell's existence. Her near invisibility showed how thoroughly Hollywood could rewrite personal stories when marketability was at stake. Their marriage highlights the vast divide between the industry's crafted public myths and the complicated private lives hidden beneath them. Ready for a deeper cut? The last couple proves that Hollywood's biggest stories happen behind tightly closed doors. Number 1. Anthony Quinn and Katherine DeMille. Anthony Quinn's marriage to Katherine DeMille stands as one of Hollywood's clearest examples of ambition intertwining with legacy. Quinn, known for his rugged intensity and commanding presence, was an actor on the rise but still battling typecasting and limited opportunities. Katherine, adopted daughter of legendary director Cecil B. DeMille, carried a name that instantly opened doors. She lacked the glamour expected of star spouses, but her family's influence offered Quinn something far more valuable than image: legitimacy within a studio system shaped by her father's power. Their union was quickly understood as a strategic alliance that elevated Quinn's position in Hollywood. Katherine's serious demeanor and unconventional looks puzzled gossip columnists who expected Quinn to marry someone who matched his public image. Her stern presence contrasted sharply with the vibrant starlets of the era. Yet within the industry, her DeMille connection mattered more than appearance. For Quinn, navigating a prejudiced environment as a Mexican-American actor, the marriage created opportunities that might otherwise have taken years to earn. Behind the scenes, however, the relationship revealed deep imbalances. Katherine managed the household and raised their 5 children, fulfilling the expectations of a high-profile Hollywood family, while Quinn's rising fame brought new temptations. His affairs became open secrets, culminating in a relationship with an Italian costume designer who bore him children while he was still married. This made clear what many suspected: the marriage served practical purposes more than romantic ones. As Quinn's career flourished, Katherine was pushed further into the background, her influence overshadowed by younger, glamorous women who captured his attention. After nearly 30 years, the marriage ended, only after Quinn achieved the level of fame that no longer required the DeMille connection. The timing confirmed long-held assumptions. The relationship had served its purpose. Quinn's later marriages to conventionally beautiful partners revealed his true personal preferences once ambition no longer dictated his choices. These Hollywood marriages reveal how much of the Golden Age happened out of sight. Real relationships shaped by pressure, ambition, and choices the studios never wanted fans to see. Behind every polished poster was a story far more complicated than the image. These unexpected unions show that even the brightest stars lived unpredictable lives. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories from classic Hollywood. And don't forget to watch the next video on your screen.